privacy until Cornell shut down the otherworldly computer network that enabled its site. So the notion of a house in the middle of nowhere at the end of a very remote road did not surprise Cornell. But it might add another layer of mystery to solve. A tall tree stood at each side of the house, and that was it. It was just the house and two trees in the middle of a yellow-brown field. Cornell switched the key to off. Well, he thought, time to find the lake. He grabbed his Get Rid of Ghosts and Lakes briefcase and opened the motorhome door. Supernatural super sleuths are always prepared to vanquish ghosts from lakes, even when finding the lake is part of the mystery. He thumped up the wooden steps and ran his hand through his greasy curly black hair since he never carried a comb on him. Saturday was bath night. Today was only Monday. Then Cornell raised his fist and banged on the screen door. That action also raised his purple t-shirt, so he tugged it lightly back into place. That reminded Cornell of something else too. He was out of clean clothes. He was wearing his last pair of faded blue jeans and his last clean t-shirt. The shirt had the word "boo" stamped on it. But Cornell wasn't too worried. Laundry was part of his payment. He raised his fist and banged again, harder this time. After 20 minutes, knocked, the door slowly opened. A sullen teenager, black hair slicked back, glowered at him. "You're him?" the teenager asked. He had ketchup stains on his white t-shirt. "Young man, I am the great supernatural super sleuth Cornell Dyer. I specialize in amulets, fortune-telling, ghost hunting, horoscopes, numerology, palm reading, potion seances." "Yep, you're him. Grandmother's expecting you. Let's go." The teenager led Cornell through a dingy hallway to a small living room that smelled of mildew and made a steady creak, creak, creak sound. The room was jammed full of scratched, broken, and dusty furniture. More furniture than you'd find in a dozen antique furniture stores. An old woman with dyed red hair and green eyes was rocking back and forth in one of the chairs with the energy of a small child. "Cornell Dyer?" the woman croaked in a loud, strong voice. "Professor Cornell Dyer," he corrected her. She smiled. "Yes, Professor. I am Rosemary Mueller, and this is..." Rosemary looked at the teen slouching against the door jamb. "This is my grandson. His name is Kenneth Tyler Mueller." "Ty," the teen corrected Rosemary. "Told you to stop calling me." "Please, Professor," Rosemary gestured. "Have a seat." Cornell looked around the room for an item that could hold his weight. He finally decided on a heavy coffee table, but he kept a grip on the briefcase. "Where's the lake?" Cornell asked. "I'm here to get rid of the ghost." Rosemary stopped rocking. "It's not that simple." Cornell held up his briefcase. "Yes, it is. I have everything I need right here. Where's the lake?" "You can't just get rid of the ghost, you see." "Yes, I can." Rosemary sighed. "Professor, ghosts have haunted our town ever since the Revolutionary War. They say part of our town is built on buried soldiers that died here." "Yeah, well, that's an interesting tale," Cornell said as he rose. "I can get rid of those ghosts too. Who can show me that part of town?" "Kenneth, I'm in Ty could," Rosemary said. "I can't walk that far." "You can take my motor home," Cornell said. "No, you can't," Rosemary argued. "Ty?" So Ty grabbed his leather jacket and headed for the door. Cornell grabbed his colorful patchwork blazer from his motorhome and put the Get Rid of Ghosts and Lakes briefcase back in the motorhome. Then he picked up his all-purpose ghost-begone magical wand, which was hiding under the couch. Cornell didn't know if he would see any ghosts, but he wanted to bring it just in case. When Cornell locked his motorhome and pocketed the keys, he said, "I'm ready." Ty scowled and plodded across the field. So that's why Cornell could not take the motorhome. The field had no road, so Cornell had no place to drive the motorhome. Well, Cornell thought, a mystery solved. They walked so long that Cornell wished he had brought a couple bottles of orange drink. Every few minutes, Cornell swatted a mosquito or two or waved away clouds of gnats. After a long while, Cornell and Ty arrived at the edge of a hill overlooking a ghost town. Cornell knew it was a ghost town because he had watched lots of movies about ghost towns and their ramshackle buildings. And this town looked just like those movies. Ty pointed. "That's it." "So let's go," Cornell said. Ty shook his head. You'd have to be brainless to go any further. Cornell shrugged. Well, looks like I'm brainless. Clutching his wand, Cornell trudged down the embankment, and then Cornell trudged over to the town. The town was full of deserted buildings, a great place for ghosts to haunt. Cornell looked through several buildings, ready to vanquish ghosts with a flick of his wand. But Cornell saw no trace of any ghosts, not even furniture covered in old bed sheets. So Cornell trudged back up the hill to Ty. Find anything? Ty asked scornfully. Not yet, Cornell said, but I won't give up until I do. Looks like you'll be here forever. Ty turned on his heel and stalked back to the house.
No, you go ahead, and then we'll wrap it up with that, so we have time for,
Okay.
if anybody would like to buy or whatever. Poor Louise has been here since 4 o'clock this morning, she's exhausted.
Yes. So do you want me to read another short one or no?
Yeah.
All right. Well, this is also not published. It's almost all done. I'm in the process of editing it. And what I'll do is I'll read a couple paragraphs. That's the back cover copy. I'll give a short explainer so you understand where I'm at in the book, and then I'll read it. So it's called Call of the Siren, and a very short synopsis on the back says, Sue Bass is haunted by dreams of her father, who died in a boating accident before she was born, alluring dreams of water and song. But then a soft-spoken man with an inside plan comes to town, and Sue's sleepwalking stops, only to resurface with greater magnetism when he leaves. Two voices beckon. Which one will she heed? So the chapter I'm reading is called Sharp as Spears. The time is 1912. The setting is Munsonville, a fictional fishing village in northern Michigan. Sharp as Spears features the grief of two people, Sue Bass, who has heard singing in her head all her life, and Martin Parks, the doctor who's treated her and believes the singing Sue hears has a supernatural origin. For Sue, the singing always sings on, and every now and then I will remind the reader she is always hearing it. She works in the kitchen of Munsonville Inn. She's just lost her mother, and she's been jilted by the object of her infatuation. Her source of comfort is poetry. So the sing-song poetry of old nursery rhymes, an old book of poems she keeps under her pillow. And the poem that's included in this chapter is one of those poems. I didn't write the poem's in the public domain, but it's in this book of poetry that she keeps and reads. And the doctor, the other half of the poetry, he's obsessed with his former fiancée who was murdered, but he believes she's now a vampire and the cause of the singing in Sue's head, and he is slowly becoming unglued. The only problem with this piece is that I'm going to leave off in mid-sentence somewhere. That's right, I won't be reading it to the end. So, all right. Pain, pain, pain. Sue's world was just one sharp, slicing, pricking, stinging pain after another. The whole universe existed for a single reason, to inflict unrelenting, unremitting, unforgiving pain upon Sue. Sue could not cook without the knife taking a bite out of her flesh or the flame taking a bite out of her flesh. Sue could not mend an apron without the needle or the scissors taking a bite out of her flesh. Sue could not walk home without a flying insect or two taking a bite out of her flesh. Bite, 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 pain, 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 bite and pain, bite and pain. Sue's whole world was bite and pain. Oh, but what Sue wouldn't give for more bites and pain. Sue would accept every bite and pain from every knife, every flame, every needle, every pair of scissors, every flying insect, if only she could rewind time. If only Sue could prevent this last injury. If only Sam might refrain from speaking the final words he spoke to Sue on his most final of final days in Munsonville. If only Sue hadn't floated into Sam's orbit with a coffee pot on the last day, the day he left Munsonville for the last time, for good this time. But how her spirit had rejoiced in his presence and marveled at the scene, falling to its knees in his vicinity. But if Sue hadn't approached the table, If Sue hadn't asked that all-important question, refill? If Sue's hand hadn't hovered over that most precious cup and saucer, Sue would never have seen Sam throw back his head with a harsh chuckle. She would never have heard him call out loudly for every patron to hear, "Hey, it's the crazy girl, the girl who hears singing. Hey, crazy girl, what you doing hanging about me? Why don't you go jump in a lake?" The laughter, the crashes and splats as the tins dropped to the floor, the hot tears as Sue blindly fled out of the inn's front doors and smack into watery Ghost Girl. Except Ghost Girl was grown up now. Ghost Girl was a fine lady in a fine gown and riding in a fine carriage pulled by 2 fine horses, its reins in the hands of a handsome man with a brown pinstripe suit and bowler hat. Ghost Girl removed her linen from her satchel, as bluish white as her translucent skin, and dabbed Sue's eyes with it. "Take a ride with us," Ghost Girl said in a weak, ghostly voice. "Take a ride amongst the trees." "The town mouse," Caitlin reminded her gently. A warning from a guardian angel? Or just a sad, distant memory from Sue's past that was too far in Sue's past? "Won't we get lost?" Sue blubbered. It was a stupid question, Sue knew that, but it was better than a rote phrase of, "Welcome to Munsonville." Ghost Girl shook her head. "I often drive through the woods. They invigorate me." Sue looked at Ghost Girl's husband. Sue knew neither one of them. What if they were disreputable? What if they left her alone in the woods? Or worse? And what did it matter now? "Hey, it's the crazy girl, the girl who hears singing. Hey, crazy girl, what you doing hanging about me? Why don't you go jump in a lake?" Sue burst into tears. Ghost Girl took Sue by the hand and helped her into the carriage, and then they were clip-clopping away into the enchanted stay-away land of densely packed trees and their secrets, of sturdy trunks and leafy boughs, of spindly branches and snapping twigs, of musky green-leaf scents and scampering mammals, of filtering lights and lacy shadows, of rustles and whispers, of a hidden house where nothing dwelled except sadness and memories. Ghost Girl smiled down at her. The singing sang on. They let her off in front of the house. Sue fished out the key, Sue undid the locks and bolts with clicks and trudged inside. She set a loaf of bread in a paper package tied with string on the table. She undid her wraps, hung her wraps, and trudged to the bedroom. Soon she was in bed, drawing up the angel quilt, head and heart pounding, breaths burning. Soon she heard the familiar click, and Sue lay in the darkness, alone, locked in, and in pain. Ma was not on the other side of the door, and Sam was not anywhere in her future. The Odic force was just another Rickly lie. "He will not come," Sue told herself, repeating the line over and over as if the words were written on the board, and Sue was marking her brain against further foolishness. "He will not come. He will not come. He will not come. He will not come." Ma lost Arvid, Sue lost Ma and Sam. Sue only had food and words, and she groped for the latter under her pillow, but it spoke no comfort, only stark, harsh truth. Take the blossom in your hair alone. No more it seemeth beautiful or bright. Its sickening swell, and sickening is its subtly sweet perfume. He will not come tonight. Take off the necklace with its sparkling gem and rings that glow and glitter in the light, and fling them in the case that waits for them. He will not come tonight. Take off the robe a little while you chose to make you fairer in his sight. 'Tis 10 o'clock, so late you can but know. He will not come tonight. He will not come. God grant you strength and grace, for never more upon your mortal sight shall dawn a glimpse of that beloved face that did not come tonight. He will not come. And through the shadow, you guys are hilarious. Will the teenagers in the back please be great? And through the shadowed years, the perfume of that blossom that you bore shall stir the font of salt and bitter tears. Comes no more.
Timothy.
Daniel.
Timothy.
Daniel. That was all Daniel.
Wow.
Sue wept. The singing sang on. Sorrow. That was the dagger Dr. Park saw before him. That was his cup of spicy foaming wine. Sorrow for the loss of his parents and his innocence that came with having parents. Sorrow mixed with guilt, mixed with passion, and mixed with anger, at, for, towards, Millicent, Millicent, Millicent. With passions as wild as the storm, she blew up to swallow up the villagers. For he knew deep in his soul she caused the storm that killed the father he knew, and that knowledge horrified and excited him. And he knew that whatever she began on October 15, 1894, somehow continued with the little Bass girl, which he knew, he'd always known, even as he eliminated the rational and irrational reasons for her sleepwalking and auditory hallucinations. Something of Millicent existed in that girl, and Dr. Parks craved it with a craving he could not squelch. He sought either greater refuge in Nita with a groveling desperation, but he sensed a pulling back and he couldn't blame her. He stopped seeing his patients, he stopped seeing the vampires, and he didn't care. At least the bottles were bad. Eventually, when both room and soul darkened so that he ought to turn up the glass and didn't, Martin fancied he saw a reflection in the mirror, the glint of the hairbrush as Millicent pulled it through her hair, and he clenched his fists. She was there, and yet she was not. A mirage of his drug-oppressed mind, and yet so real he stumbled forward, hands clawed to clutch her, to lift the weight of her gleaming red hair tinged with blood, and twist at his hands and tie off her throat. He staggered about the room, the ghosts of the past haunting him, or were they just the bed sheets, hanging immobile as bed sheets hang when undisturbed by sleepy humans, waiting for him to collapse inside them and shroud the frenzy he spent alone. He paced with footsteps he fancied were silent, even as they thudded across the carpeted floor, and he thirsted for the water the village men were blessed to drink, for the streams that consumed him, if only to be wrapped in Millicent's coldness again, a flaming coldness that burned his throat and chilled his sensibilities. He glanced at the window and threw it to the night, a dark night, a chilly night, an ebony sky with no sliver of moonlight, just the outlines of gnarled branches against patches of gray. He imagined the whistling of the wind through a leak in the pane. He imagined the voice of Millicent breathing his name, of bearing her fangs, of clamping his neck and drinking the blood she always craved before death. A smack of cold, he shivered. Was she near? He sprang to the window and flung it high. Millicent, Millicent, Millicent! Why, with all the victims in the world, had Millicent not visited him? Why, with all the necks to bite and blood to drink, did she not return to drink his? Why, when Millicent lured his father and all the men to the lake, would a child hear that same bewitching tune that even now Millicent denied him to hear? I am thine, and thou art mine. He stumbled about the room, half dizzy, half mad and tranced. Why did she not lull him to sleep in her cold embrace? Why did he not drink until his lungs were filled, the torrents carried him, to where no green plant grows, no sweet bird sings, where only her? He swerved to the windows, the mirrors, the windows, and even opened the door to peep down the hall, but no demon flitted in. Perhaps she lurked in the shadows, out of notice, out of reach. Beautiful! God, she was beautiful! Not the limpid beauty of blue eyes and soft brown tresses, of supple limbs, a hint of dimples beneath her rosy cheeks, and a healthy sheen to her silken skin, and half-bare shoulders in the moonlight. Not the grace of a goddess, but the pride of a cruel empress, with eyes of green stones, hair of the finest red tumbling around a crown carriage, the white skin of nobility and death, the agility of a kitten when she pounced, a well-sharpened tongue. Yeah, that's where I'm leaving off. Thank you.
Why don't we call it an evening there? Thank you all for coming. Some of you are family, some are friends, and some are new. And so if you guys would like information about the group, I'm happy to add you to our email list, okay? And we're on Facebook, so you can follow us there. We are a dues-paying organization, but the first meeting is always free, so you can kind of try us on for size, all right? And we meet the first and third Thursdays of each month. So our first meeting is supposed to be this coming Thursday, March 3rd. And we will be sharing that on Facebook and through the email. So with that, Louise, thank you so much for the opportunity. It's so great to have a partner and a helpmate, a supporter in this. We appreciate it very much. And thank you to the Joliet Library and for all of you for coming out. Come on up if you'd like to buy any books from either Denise, myself, or the anthologies, okay? Have a good evening, everybody.
Thank you, Tom.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you all for coming. We're going to do this again at the end of April 28th. We'll have 2 more offers. Have a good night.
Thank you, guys.